Hi, everyone. Welcome. Today we are talking with Jordyn Hargrave, who is a BCBA, and we are very excited to meet you. She is also a member of our community. Welcome, Jordyn.
Hello.
So we are very excited to talk with you today. Can you start by telling us, or our audience, a little bit about you and how you got into the field?
Yeah. So, my name is Jordyn Hargrave. I live outside of St. Louis. I have been in the field for now 7 years. I started out actually as an intern at Western Kentucky University. And I took a class called behavior modification at the time. And I ironically was not doing well in this class. And I was like, I hate this class. And I ended up shadowing a BCBA. And she was like, you do really awesome with kids. Like, just keep going. And so then I just ended up doing another field experience class with Kelly Autism Program, which has done wonderful things now. They are expanded and whatnot, and I ended up loving it. And so I knew that was what I wanted to do. So I have done, since then, I have done in-home, I've done early intervention clinic, and then I have also, as a RBT, done school. I can't even think what it's called. School. Here we go. Basically a school, like a school RBT, and then as a BCBA work behavior reduction in the schools as a BCBA. So yeah, I've been around for a while.
That's awesome.
Your undergrad class sounds very similar to mine. I was not in the field, and I took an undergrad psychology class, and it was, basically it wasn't ABA. It was just behavioral analysis. Mm-hmm. And we actually worked with rats, which was kind of cool, but it was awful. Like, I actually couldn't stand, it wasn't the rat part, but it was just the learning. Like, I couldn't stand anything to do with like neutral stimulus, conditioned stimulus, unconditioned stimulus. What was the difference between all of them? I didn't understand operant conditioning versus respondent conditioning. And it was a mess. And I literally went to my professor after the class, while the class was still on, but, at the end of class. And I said, how does this relate to real life? And I was baffled. I'm like, I don't care about rats. I don't care about pigeons. Give me something that I can relate to. And it wasn't until, like a couple of classes later that I was like, oh, this is really cool. I was finished my undergrad. I had gone through, behavioral modification track in school and really memorized the terms. And it wasn't until afterwards that I went, oh, now I get it. My school actually relates to this. Okay. And I actually emailed my professor afterwards and said, by the way, if anybody else asks you this question, this is what I'm doing now. And he started referring people to me quite often because they had the same question as me, and he couldn't answer it because he was in experimental behavioral analysis and not applied. So interesting that you stuck with it. I'm happy that you did.
Yeah, but it's so true that also the people who, or like what you're learning in school or the theory or the behavioral psychology is so different than the practice. And like we talk about this a lot, and kind of being prepared through taking your BCBA coursework doesn't always prepare you for what you're doing. And the people that are so good at relating to kids and being fun and being reinforcing, may not enjoy the coursework. So there's this big discrepancy between our training and the actual role that we play. And one of the most important roles that we play is really just being fun and relatable and being able to enjoy, working with kids. Mm-hmm. So I like that you still found that through your path. Yeah. And another, you had mentioned part of what we do in the community is that we have, conversations. And one of the posts that came up recently was trying to come up with ideas of maybe creative reinforcers or things that we could share so that other people are not just using the same, Pop-Up Pirate or M&Ms, and trying to be a little bit more fun and creative. And I know that that's something that you brought up that's interesting to you. Can you tell us some ideas that you have or things that you might use that are a little bit more creative?
Yeah. So I had this one little friend that They would come in the morning and be obsessed with traffic cones. And we used them for blocking off like if the bathroom was closed. And so then if that traffic cone would have to be the little partner all day long. And so then what we would do, it was so big, we couldn't do any like DTT or it just wasn't functional. So I ended up going to Dollar Tree, and they had these motivational little cones on it. It was like, you're awesome, like you're the best, but they also had different colors. So with this individual, they had matching shapes for some of the targets, or also like counting. So we were able to incorporate that reinforcer piece, but also incorporate goals. But yeah, it was something that was motivating for that student. So using the reinforcers for him, and but also target those goals that was in for the student. It was IEP related. So it's really, really cool. Another one that was really creative that I came up with was at Hobby Lobby, they have, I don't know what kind of paper, and I should have grabbed it over there, but it's in between computer paper and the very thick paper, but it's shiny. So, but we couldn't have mirrors because obviously when working with kids with severe behaviors, that will break in a lot of school and in school settings. That will, there could be a lot of things that could go wrong in that situation. So there was a student that really loved mirrors in the bathroom. So to promote classroom, staying in the classroom versus the bathroom, made a little fashion show area or a dance area.
Oh my gosh.
I made like a little, with all these little papers that shined and everything, and made a little area, and the student loved it. And then I found out, you never know, like other kids around that might be also motivating for them. Like 3 other kids would love that little area. And it was just like, oh, sweet. Like, okay, this not just one kid, it's multiple kids that was
and now it's a social opportunity
for them. Yeah. So, and that was cheap. Those things were only $1. So, that's where I know a lot of people will spend so much money on reinforcers for kids, and these things, you don't have to spend that much money on reinforcers. But I know people will spend like hundreds of dollars for things. I'm trying to think of, those are definitely my 2 really creative ones that I've came up with.
What's really awesome is it sounds to me like it's about paying attention to what they like to begin with. I mean, someone who likes pylons, that's fairly obvious because every day I want this pylon. But, somebody who's in the bathroom looking at mirrors, it does take a little bit to go, oh, that's what they're motivated by, is their own reflection, or, oh, let's try this. And it's really about, as much as we say, oh, do preference assessments, et cetera, sometimes it's not about a preference assessment, but it's just about paying attention.
Right. I was going to say, I think that's like the big part of like what's different from like what I do versus other BCBAs, or, maybe other BCBAs do the same thing, is that I definitely spend a lot of time and effort in like hands-on with the kids, and spend learning and just observing them and watching them. And I know we talked about that this morning, just spending time with them, being one-on-one with them, and being one-on-one with the staff. And I think that really shows, that you are caring and you're compassionate about what, for them. And then you're also just learning those little things that maybe their family didn't even know.
Yeah. I have a similar example where we had a student who we were trying to toilet train him, and it was very hard to motivate him, but it was beginning of summer camp. And in summer camp, those like huge, like blow up things that are in front of like car dealerships that like wave, those like wavy men that like do those silly things. So they're gigantic and they're enormous, and like, they require a lot of effort, but the kid loved them. And that was the only thing he really loved. And I was talking with the therapist and she was like, well, that's really the only thing he likes, but I guess we don't really, we can't take him outside every time he goes to the bathroom. So what are we going to use? And I was like, my son had just purchased because I don't know, we were in a bookstore and he found a miniature version of that exact thing that you push with your finger and it does the same type of dance. And it was just such a coincidence, but it's that creativity of no, we're not limited by always the environment, but we can be creative. And he happened to have bought that thing the same week. And I was like, wait, I have an idea. I have the exact same thing in miniature. And that was actually what we used to motivate him for the bathroom. So just looking around and being creative and not, being able to think outside the box, I think is a huge skill for all of us.
Mm.
And I also love that you mentioned, just spending time with the kids and building a relationship. But I also find that sometimes we get caught up, like we said earlier, in the theory and the technical. And how do you feel in your supervision, either were you or were you not kind of trained that way? Or what kind of training did you receive that allowed you to be this creative?
I'm not sure because I feel like I had that training, but at the same time, I feel like I wanted more of that training. I feel in some regards, I didn't have that training or I had the absence of it. And so I want to give my staff what I didn't have. And so, and I think there may have been a little bit of that disconnect with being in home. I was more independent. But then again, they gave me that responsibility though too, and so they were like, "Yeah, you're a great worker. You're good. You don't need our help." And so that's what happens whenever you're also going to be a BCBA. You don't need our help. So that's where it's at the same time.
Sounds like it was somewhat natural for you.
Yeah,
maybe you didn't receive the training, but you were able to kind of, express yourself through being a BCBA.
Yeah. And then, actually, so it goes into where I'm getting my second master's. I actually just did a personality test. It's actually my personality. I just figured that out to be a little bit creative and be naturally helping, with whichever one I have, which I thought that was ironic with being in the field. I don't know if that's something that we should consider too. I don't know if that's an upcoming thing that might be a possibility of a difference. Didn't know that though.
I should take that test. I'm curious if I should be in the field.
Are you in the right field, Shira? What do you think?
Maybe I don't want to know the answer.
Hey, you never know.
On our webinar today, we were talking about that book called What Color is Your Parachute? And I, refer to that sometimes when I'm looking for, job skills for people and kind of matching up their personality and their interests and what have you. But it's an old, they update it every single year with new jobs, but it's an old book. And I remember taking that. I think it might have even been in my undergrad at university way back when. And I remember being a red or an orange, and they had different colors to your personality, and then they'd match you up with different jobs. And I still don't remember what I was supposed to be, but I don't think BCBA was in there at the time.
I mean, it could be though, you could still be in that career field of helping individuals. And that's where I fall in. So
kind of reassuring, right? You're yes, I'm in the right field.
I'm doing the right thing. Yeah,
exactly.
Interesting. And I also know you told us you have a bit of an interesting background and a story. Is that something you want to share?
Yeah, I can share it. So, and that's where past, I do have a little bit of it. So, it's actually been almost a year and a half ago, I was in a car wreck. And I have so backtrack a little bit more. So actually 3 months prior to the car wreck, I suffered a concussion. So then they say whenever you have a concussion and then you have a concussion right after that, you are more susceptible to a brain injury. So then I got in a car wreck. So then obviously traumatic brain injury. So with that happened, I had to go to speech therapy, physical therapy. I've had concussion therapy. In total, it ended up being like 8 doctors. I was released from one doctor 4 days after my car wreck, told me I was fine. And then all these other doctors came up. I returned to work after then, too. So I continued my caseload, everything. So it was very difficult time, but, and I know some of my students and learners knew I was different, but with me, at the very beginning, I wasn't speaking in full sentences all the way. And some of them knew that in the mornings I would go to speech too. And, when my middle schoolers, I had one student that would be like, I don't want to do speech today. I'd be like, look, man, I don't want to do speech either, but I went this morning. And so that's the other thing with, my story or other people's stories with our kids. You can be as open as you want to with them, but sometimes they'll use it right against you. Like, I know my one kid, he did know about my head injury, and he would be like, oh, is your head hurting today? I'd be like, yeah, I am not feeling too good today. He'd be like, all right, let's not do anything. I'd be like, no, we're doing our work.
Smart little guy.
And so it's been definitely difficult with doing everything, but I told myself to get through it. And at the end of the day, obviously I'm speaking in my sentences. I do know my name now. Numbers are still really difficult. Multiple steps are still really challenging for me, but I wouldn't have applied to my master's program if I didn't think I was ready for it. And I actually am still going to doctors, but yeah, I'm really, really, really proud, and I'm still in the field and still love what I do and love working with kids. I have to do some modifications and accommodations for myself, but I think that's what I get along with the kids, and I advocate for them as much as I advocate for myself, and it helps.
Wow. You have such a positive attitude. I'm sure not every day is like that, but
no, not every day.
Congratulations.
Even this morning, but yeah. I'm here.
Yeah. Congratulations for just being able to pick yourself up again and try and get through it and, live one day at a time, really. What's your perspective like now working in the field versus say 2 years ago?
I don't know. I mean, a little bit, because I'm still hands-on, but I think.
Do you relate to them more now? I was
going to say, I think I definitely relate more to them, because I'm able to, I feel like I'm able to see more of where they're coming from. In
a way, you lived it.
Yeah. And so, and I have to fight for a lot of my rights too. And I'm also, in a way, when I see things that are wrong, I have to fight for them too. And so whenever I have those learners that don't know their rights, or they don't know because I'm the only one, I have to advocate for them. And so that's where it's like that's where I definitely think that the 2 years have come, but then that's where my knowledge is too. Mm-hmm. And I think that's also the experience as well, though.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like you're super strong. I can't even imagine going through that, but not only that, you still do what you do. You love what you do. You're getting another master's. This is your second master's, right?
Yeah. This will be my BCBA was my first one. So Master's of Education. And then this one will be Master's of Arts in School Counseling with licensed track for LPC.
Wow. So what motivates you? What have been your reinforcers through this whole thing that keep you going and pushing and recovering?
Yeah. So the kids definitely motivate me. And then motivation in general. I would definitely say just knowing that I'm like the only one in my family, literally, to do any of this, and to prove a lot of people and doctors wrong. That
I was just going to say, that's quite a motivation, is proving people wrong. You'd be surprised how far that will take you.
Yeah, proving people wrong. And that's probably the biggest motivation.
That's good. Wow. So what made you decide to go back for the second master's? Like, are you still going to be a BCBA, or are you kind of changing fields, or?
Kind of, sort of. So actually I'm going to pull out real quick. So this is where our borderline is with I love ACT.
Yes.
Love it, love it, love it. But goes in with our BCBA life here. You can only do so much with social emotional and BCBA life. So that's where I really want to be like a school counselor. So with school counseling, you can do a little bit of both lifestyles.
Like more of the emotional stuff. You're leaving
more of the emotional stuff,
behavioral, getting into some of the touchy-feely,
touchy-feely stuff. Mm-hmm. And so that's where here in Missouri, you can be you have to have the K-12 teacher cert. And so I have to go back to get my I'm not a teacher. And so that's why I was like, all right, well, if I'm going to do that, I might as well just get my master's. But I love social emotional. I would definitely say that's something I'm very passionate about. And then, I love acting. Or just like in general, I love anything about social emotional learning. Obviously with my little octopus. But yeah, that's definitely what's motivated me to get my second master's for sure.
It's been such a great addition to the field. I think the whole ACT, AIM, all of that's really been filling, I think, a need that we haven't found a way to tap into through strict behavioral stuff. I know I use it a lot with a lot of the kids that I work with, because that's the need that they have. And I didn't find any other thing that was really getting them there. So yeah, I don't think I'm going to go for a second master's, but you can let me know how it goes.
Yeah, I will. It's actually been pretty, I've been in it for a month now, and it's been good.
Wow. That's really amazing. Something that we always ask our guests is, our field is progressing, like whether that's with, ACT and AIM and all that stuff, but we still have a long way to go. And if there's anything that you would love to see change about our field, improve, do better at, what would that be?
Mentoring first year BCBAs.
Wow, it's so funny. That's what we do.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's why we do it, is because people come out of that exam and, they're getting hired as clinical directors and no mentorship and given a full caseload and really have very little idea what to do with it. So what's been your experience?
Thrown into the fire.
Sink or swim, right?
Sink or swim. I did get supervision, with my director. Whenever I was like the BCBA, but there was just so much that I didn't know with it. And then the other part was my supervision with my coursework and stuff like that did not match whatever my BCBA job. So all my hours were at early intervention clinic. And so then whenever my BCBA job was for the school or for a therapeutic school. And so then it totally different ball game. I've never worked with IEPs before. I was all strictly VB-MAP, like only VB-MAP. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, this is over my head. And so it was very challenging. I cried a lot. I wanted to quit a lot. But now it's IEPs are all I want to work with. But I also don't know if I'm afraid to learn anything else because of my brain injury stuff. It's like now I'm terrified to learn anything else because that is all I know. But I'm so obsessed with learning things that I want to continue to learn like everything, clearly.
And you are. I mean, you're going back to school, so
yeah,
you're going to learn new things, hopefully.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's great advice, both in while you're getting your supervision, like varying it up and not sticking to one specific type of supervision. I always say to people who I'm supervising is this experience is going to be what you make of it. If you're looking at it as a way to just check off, boxes and complete the time and just say you did it, you're going to struggle a lot later. But if you use this time to like make the most of it and volunteer for opportunities and ask questions, then you'll be a lot better prepared. So it's both before the exam and also after. Getting that mentorship and being your own advocate, I think, is the best advice we can give people on either side of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's awesome.
If you are do you have any favorite go-to resources? Or is there anything that you use in the field on a regular basis? You mentioned ACT. What else do you use?
I use you guys How to ABA as a resource regularly.
Thank you.
Yes, I have on my desk here ABA Visualized.
Oh, I just ordered that.
Yeah, it's I just got it not too long ago as like my paper copy. I use them. I use Study Notes ABA. That's how I studied for my exam. Listen to their podcast.
They're great.
They are wonderful. Trying to think what else I had used regularly.
Especially for a school setting. I imagine that comes in handy.
Yep. I was gonna say a lot of that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Jordyn, this was so nice to talk to you and inspiring to hear how far you've come and your journey. And I'm excited to see where you go after this master's. And I hope that you'll keep us updated as to where you end up. And hopefully it's somewhere close to the field of ABA, because I think we have a lot to learn from you. So thank you.
Thank you, Jordyn. Thank you.